Get paid to drive. Start a new career behind the wheel at the EMTA. If you are looking for a high-paying and rewarding career with full benefits and paid training, stop by or apply online today with the EMTA. Plus, EMTA riders can now enjoy free Wi-Fi on new, clean, and environmentally friendly buses to travel all over Erie County. Visit ridethee.com for more information.
Get on board EMTA. Get on board EMTA. Get
Quickfill gasoline is made right here in America. United Refining Company, who operates Quickfill, refines its gasoline from North American crude oil in Warren, Pennsylvania. When you buy United Refining Company gasoline at Quickfill, you keep jobs and businesses in America. And you keep American families strong. You don't need to send your money overseas when you buy gasoline. Buy American-made gasoline at Quickfill. Quickfill, driving America.
Welcome to TalkErie.com's Joel Natalie Show, Erie, Pennsylvania's daily podcast. Every day, we tackle the biggest issues that the Erie, PA region faces. Stay informed and involved as we advance the narrative of Erie. Now, here's Joel Natalie.
I am excited to welcome in studio here my adult children. And so from my left is my youngest, our daughter, our darling daughter, Jennifer. Hi, Jen.
Hi, how's it going?
Good. And we've got my oldest, Joel Jr.
There you go, get it right.
Yeah, got to get it's all
Glad
the
to be
J's.
here.
Yeah. And of course, Joshua.
Hello.
In the middle there on the end. Well, guys, welcome. We're here. We had family stuff over the weekend, and you guys are in town for Thanksgiving. And I want to start with Erie because Joel and Josh live outside of town. Jennifer is making her way here in town. And let's start with you, Joel. The firstborn has privileges. No, it's joking. It's true. It's true. Talk about what you kind of the values that you take from Erie have come to play now in your career. You've been launched now for 10 years almost out of college. Is there anything specific or any anecdotes or stuff that comes up of things that you learned in Erie or, things that have come into play in your
well, it's funny
career?
when, being from Erie, you talk a lot about the weather, right? So,
right? Yeah.
Living down south and being in a 55-degree day and a bunch of southern folk think it's the end of the world, and you're just tougher when you're from this area. But
true.
No, I think a lot of it is the values that you grow up, and I don't know. I would say Erie, when you kind of lump Erie,
right.
Hey, what values do you gain from Erie? I think that's tough, but I think it's this is a hardworking area. It's, we came up on that. I think we've gone through when we were kids, kind of in that transition point where it was in between that. But you see the revival, like you said, the last 10 years of being away from Erie and being downtown right now and seeing the growth, just across the street from this building and the constant construction and seeing Erie Insurance and all the things they're doing and all the money they've invested down here. I mean, you just see the growth and you see the potential.
Yeah.
So I think, what did I learn from this area? I think it's just to be a hardworking person. And I don't know if that's because of my parents and grandparents and, just family values. But I think this area, there's a reason why people want to come back once their priority shift. Like, I will be 100% honest. I was ready to get out of this town, but then your priority shift. I got 3 kids now, and all the things that I wanted to go do. It's I don't have time for that. So, there's a lot to offer. Living in the Midwest, in the middle of landlocked, areas.
Yeah.
Just the lake. That's something that people in Erie I would say we take for granted when you're living in it.
Right.
But yeah, family values are important here.
Talk about that, Josh. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I have a lot of similar feelings as Joel. When you first asked the question, definitely my mind went right to resiliency, with similar to trying to withstand the extreme weather that Erie gets with the snow and the hot summers. I think that definitely sticks with you no matter where you're at. So I think that's a big part of it, and like Joel said as well, the hardworking determination that I think it comes from the city, but it is really instilled from our parents and our family. I think you and Mom can take a lot of credit for.
Yeah.
So,
Jen, you deal with a lot of young people. Talk about resiliency. We talk a lot about, is Generation Z able to have the resiliency and grit? You've had to overcome obstacles to get to where you are. Weigh in on that. Yeah.
Well, I feel like in my short time as a grown person,
Adulting,
I've seen growth in myself. I think I am from a different generation than my older brothers. So don't speak low on the Gen Zers, but I think we've Gen Z adults, I'm lumping in the 20-somethings.
sure.
We grew up with all of the transition, with the early 2000s. Like, I know the technology that my brothers had, and I used it too, but had to, adapt to the new technology and had to grow with it. And I think in my own, my personal life, I've seen the growth of being in the circle of the hip things that are going on, but learning what is my growth away from that.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of 20-something Gen Zers are going through right now, of like, oh, I was just in that lump and individualizing right now.
Right.
And I think that's me and my peers. We've been seeing that a lot. And I think Erie, it's you're going to see a lot of it as people that were in Erie High and grow up and either move away or come back.
Yeah.
It's just a different generation of kids. It's almost separated from me because I was older than that. So
I want you guys to weigh in on, the knock against the Gen Zers. Again, you are one, you guys work with them. There's this blanket assumption that they're not resilient. They don't have grit. They don't want to work. They want safe spaces and all these things. I mean, it's almost comical. Have you, Jay? You start with that. Have you noticed that? Are there peers or those just slightly younger than you that are actually performing that way, where it just seems like if you push them a little bit that they crumble?
I think there's definitely those people.
But aren't they in every generation?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is that it's not unique to Gen Z. I think it's just louder. But I also think
they're willing to articulate what they feel.
Yeah, and honestly, like, I could argue that it was more in the millennial, zillennial time zone that's just being seen, because that's what maybe people younger than me are being taught by their predecessors.
Their elders.
yeah, and they're all living their lives online and posting every aspect of their life.
But
Right.
so is every other generation.
Exactly.
now. So I think that's a really interesting. It's a very interesting sociological study where people that are online talking about people being constantly online. I work with in higher education
Right, yeah.
with students that are all Gen Z, and they are intelligent. They know they're smart kids. They are going they're going to fill the jobs that nobody wants to do, right? So we've got all, with
Got all
everything,
these 60-somethings saying, I'm heading for the door.
yeah,
Somebody's got to pick up the slack. Right?
and then with the change of the regime come the new year, depending on how many more jobs are going to be available because of what President Trump is talking about doing. I mean, let's be honest. If there's going to be a mass exodus of people in this country, there's going to be a mass exodus of people that need to do jobs. And the generation that's going to be able to work is Gen Z. Mm-hmm. And they are capable. But I think it's an interesting thing where people say, I don't understand. And they fall on that and say, I don't understand why X. So say what you want about AOC. I will say that what she's doing right now is saying, hey, if you voted for Trump and me, come talk to me. I want to understand. There's a lot of people right now saying, I don't understand how you did this. I don't understand how you voted this way or that way. That's the same thing that's happening with Gen Z. I don't understand how you can, live in a safe space and all these things. It's hilarious because the same people that are struggling in your generation, my generation, right? It's the same people. It's the same exact thing that's been happening, but now you can see it all. It's all online. There's just more opportunity to see what's happening.
Yeah.
Right. If you waited till the next day to read the paper about the thing that happened, right, it's a little bit harder to consume than it's happening in real time. So you're gonna see all of it.
Josh, weigh in on this again, because you have people that you work with that are getting ready to retire. Mm-hmm. Are there people to hand the baton to, especially in a professional organization like you're in?
Yeah, I mean it's a hard thing to do, fill those seats with capable minds. Mm-hmm. It's a constant struggle in the defense industry, but I will say, like, in that space, there's rarely those Gen Zers that are just not wanting to work. Like,
okay,
what in my area, like,
yeah,
you either work or you're gonna find another job. Like, there's no option there to kind of skate by.
Okay. So that's more of a corporate culture thing.
Absolutely.
That if the corporate culture is such where there's just a lot of catering, then people are going to push it. But again, like we were saying with Jen, it doesn't matter what generation. If you have a permissive culture, and you want to have a supportive culture, but you also need to get the work done.
Yeah, they can come. You can have both.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's. I don't believe there's any Gen Zers in my area of work that are just not willing to do the work. Okay. The work might look slightly different because they think differently than those guys that are in their 60 plus and about to retire. Their methods of approaching a problem and finding a solution might be slightly different. But overall, it's not an issue of wanting or not wanting to do something. It's letting them go through that process in the way that they know how to do it.
Yeah.
And enabling them and empowering them to do it that way.
Cool.
Because then you're going to have way better solutions and way better culture if you're approaching it in that aspect.
Allowing people to kind of lean in on their perspective and still get the job done.
Give that leniency, but obviously you can't let projects slip and schedules slip, overrun costs and things like that. There's obvious parameters that have to be kept to.
I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but I have about 6 minutes before the bottom of the hour. I want to talk about the election, and there's a lot of. Well, okay. I want you guys to. What did you hear about the election? Because I don't think, other than Jennifer, you guys where you live were not battleground states, right? And so, I mean, it's a whole different experience than what we had here in Erie, right? Josh, go.
Yeah, I guess there was an election that happened.
You were busy working.
I've been told.
Yeah.
It basically meant nothing.
Did you get mailers?
Yeah, I got
Okay.
mailers, got the texts.
Okay.
Thankfully, no one called me in the middle of the night trying to get my vote. But yeah, I mean, where I'm living right now, like,
Is that kind of Trump country in that area, or not really?
my county went to Kamala.
It did. Okay.
But the
greater
majority,
area.
Yeah. I mean,
The state went to Trump, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Indiana was the first state called.
That's right.
Trump.
Like 7 o'clock, wasn't it?
I think it was. It was
7:01.
very early called for Trump. So, it definitely, not being in a swing state, was kind of just disheartening, and it did feel like my vote doesn't really matter. Like it legit, like I felt that way.
Yeah, wow.
I mean, Trump won by 600,000 votes in Indiana.
Wow.
Like,
I
there
mean,
was no question.
what kind of conversation, I mean, were around with your friends and so on, your coworkers? I mean,
I avoided all election talk.
did you really? Okay, good
Absolutely.
for you. All right.
I mean, I don't know if it's just my personality. I avoid those kinds of discussions with especially with coworkers, because it's just not something I want to talk about in the workplace.
Okay.
I think with some close friends it was brought up a few times, but for the most part, it was it was not a discussion that I wanted to have.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Joel, you're kind of in an opposite place,
So
right?
yeah, we're in an interesting spot where living in Illinois in
Which
very
went blue.
rural,
You're right.
but a rural part. So as
Right.
the people in my area say, the Republic of Chicago, and then everywhere else that live in the state of Illinois. So yeah, very different. You would see, in those, as we say, flyover states, right?
Yeah,
I mean, there is a
yeah.
reason for that, right? As you guys have traveled to where I live, it's a, get off the highway, drive through the cornfields, and bada bing, bada boom, there you are. So you got to see from their point of view, they felt forgotten. And
So in your neck of the woods,
we live,
in your farm community, which again, and that's big farming. I mean, these are massive 1,000-acre farms.
Yeah,
They felt forgotten. Interesting.
Yeah, so I think it goes back to my earlier statement, right? When you say I don't understand ...
Why
you're
something
going
happened.
to lose that vote. So you saw in 2016, these ebbs and flows, these peaks and valleys, where we're this extremely divisive time, and I think 2020 being the year it was, and all the political just unraveling with COVID-19 and all of the things that were happening elsewhere. I think this was, people just needed to let it all out. And, the conversations that you guys had on this show with you could feel it here. But like Josh said, I think a lot of people felt that way as well. Like, hey, we don't feel heard. And I think right now there's got to be, on both sides, we have to figure out how do we come to the middle a little bit on some of these issues and be able to have real conversations with real people, and not talking heads and people speaking for people. I mean, I was watching one of the big time networks, like right the day after the election, that just, I mean, it was like they were at a funeral,
Yeah.
because it was really just a fascinating experience.
Like the media was at a funeral, yet probably people around you were jumping for joy.
Right. It's just really interesting.
So interesting
to put everything into.
Yeah. It's like it's
the
a
election.
Super Bowl
'Cause,
on steroids.
Right.
From baggage claim to pajamas in 10 minutes. Erie International Airport. Fly with ERI.com.
Fly Erie International Airport to Charlotte on American Airlines, your nonstop gateway to the world. Also, we have Breeze Airways flying nonstop to Orlando and Tampa, Florida. A great low-cost carrier providing excellent service to the regional community. Fly Erie International for your travel needs.
Fly with ERI.com.
All year round, Frontier Home Products and Design has what you need to make your home comfortable and beautiful. Relax on a new timber tech deck designed by Frontier's experts. A new fireplace from Frontier Home Products Fireplace Gallery adds warmth and serenity to any home. Beauty and versatility at Frontier Home Products and Design Center, 4213 Peachtree, 5th next to the Bayfront Highway.
Frontier Home Products and Design Center. Discover a new frontier.
PA contractor number PA039007.
I'm with my kids. Jennifer, Joel Jr., Joshua are with us here, and we're talking about millennial and Gen Z attitudes and perspectives on the current culture. Jen, we didn't get a chance for you to weigh in before the break here about the election and kind of what you were hearing, in kind of in your spaces, whether it's with your peers or with your coworkers or whatever. And, you being still in Erie, our voices were heard. I mean, gosh, Liz Cheney said we were the number one county in America, the most important county in America.
the world.
In the world.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It was very interesting. I think the first election I voted in was 2020, and I was in college, so very much a.
Do you remember though? You drove all the way up.
I drove
to
to Erie to vote. It was just a different conversation happening in 2020. This time I'm working in higher ed. But I also am in two different spaces right now with the people that are telling me their opinions. And I mean, even just walking through my neighborhood, it was like Trump sign, Harris sign, Trump sign, Harris sign.
Yeah. Erie's kind of like that, isn't it? The city even.
Yeah. It was very interesting to be a residential citizen in Erie rather than a college student kind of like floating through wherever my living space was. So
did the conversations ever get really testy before the election?
No, I also avoided most conversations. Okay. I will say that, but I think everyone was very open. At least the people that in my space, I think they were very open about who they were voting for on either side. So that was really interesting. I felt like I did a lot more research for myself this time around. I wanted to know exactly what I was voting for without that influence of like TikTok. Like I'm not on TikTok anymore, which is just you're just gonna get things that.
So you're not on TikTok. This is interesting.
Yeah.
He was on Joe Rogan though.
I am.
You're Joe Rogan. Well, let me ask you guys, after the election, after the reaction, and think about your peers, not so much maybe the older folks that you work with, but people that are millennials or Gen Zers. Are they ecstatic? Are they in trepidation? I mean, how emotionally invested are people that surround you, your peer group, about the outcome of the election? Go ahead, Jen.
There were some people that were very upset.
Gen Zers.
Gen Zers.
Okay.
My good friends that I think they were very put off by this election.
Put off in what way?
in the results.
Oh, the result. Not so much, because I heard some people saying, hey, we don't even like these choices.
Oh, I did not like these choices. And I think, but again, this is me outside of the echo chamber that is social media. Like I stepped away from that around September. So I kind of got to miss that really intense
Gotcha. Yeah.
spiraling that happens on social media around elections. But what I did see were all of my political ads in my mailbox, multiple people canvassing my apartment.
Are you kidding?
Multiple times.
They didn't like me much, I guess.
And well, I think it's because
You were accessible. You were movable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've signed up for Next Gen, which is a I can't remember the name of it.
Like a get out the vote kind of
Yeah,
thing.
so I was a part of that in high school, and then but my fiance is an independent, so I mean everyone was sending stuff his way. So
they wanted the real you in.
and
wow.
I mean, Tom got a call at 7:00 on election day saying, "Did you vote yet?"
Oh my gosh.
And like, you only have an hour to go vote, so it was a lot even without being on social media.
Yeah.
And so I think I was very overwhelmed. I don't know about my peers. I think they might have been a little bit more solid.
Did you have any of your peers that were ecstatic at the outcome?
Of my personal friends, no.
Okay. Joel, how about you? People super emotionally invested from your early 30 group.
Yeah, I would say there was a relief that the process was complete, and it was a fair election, right? And I think was good to hear from everyone. Like, hey, we did a fair, and it was clear this time around, right? If you listen to what people were saying, people in power, hey, this is a fair election. This is what we want. This is how our process is supposed to work. People that are my age group, yeah, I also work in higher education. I don't know if you've seen any articles about higher ed in the last decade. Probably not too happy for the majority of them. But I think the biggest thing is, why can't we have the conversations anymore? And that's really the biggest thing, is what we need, what we're going to find out in the next 4 years, and I really think this is true, is the influence of AI and how, and I know I'm going way off the rails here, and you're looking at me like I am, but I think what we're going to find out in the next 4 years is how AI influences our election system. And because there is, in higher education, right, we're trying to figure this out, right? And I think there's a lot of things. If you are on social media, like Jen was talking about, you got bombarded with things that to your naked eye may not look real. It's just the constant subliminal messages, and everybody's trying to figure out how to navigate that stuff. And I would say the majority of people now are low information voters,
Right.
Where they're just going to consume.
They're not listening to the Natalie show.
No, and they're not listening. And everyone's worried about the latest conspiracy, but it's only on your side that's the conspiracy, right? So the conspiracies don't go both ways. It's just on whatever side.
Just
you're
whatever
on.
side that.
So I think that's something we got to navigate as our country heals.
Yeah.
And I hope that we can heal. That's the biggest thing, is how do we move forward and have a conversation about getting better together?
100%. Josh, you want to weigh in this? Your peers, anybody emotionally invested? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, not a lot of people close to me were heavily invested. I would say people that I went to school with, I would say most people were not super happy with the results of the election.
Okay.
But overall, I'm not surrounded with people that were like heavily campaigning, especially living in Indiana, and people that are close to me there. Everyone just kind of had their side, and there wasn't much leeway there. And the other thing is I'm kind of surrounded with people that, like I said, weren't invested and just we're going to live with the results either way. It didn't, their emotional investment wasn't there. It was more like, let's just get through this and we're going to be okay regardless of the results. I think people forget that our country is resilient enough to withstand whoever is in.
But see, that doesn't sell newspapers.
Right,
I know it
get
doesn't sell.
clicks. It doesn't get ratings on the cable channels.
Which is the problem. 100%. If you look at, and you know, I love our country, red-blooded American talking here. If you look at Europe and how they do their campaigning and how they're allowed to campaign, it's something that we probably need to look at, which is, hey, a month or two before the election, you can start campaigning.
So
we
you're
have
not
years,
saying about
4 years
stopping
we've been
free
talking about.
speech. You're just
No.
saying we're
I'm talking
dragging
about
it out, and there's this
millions and millions of dollars
Yes.
over the span of the next 4 years talking about how we're going to campaign for the next one.
Billions,
We got to
yeah.
talk up billions. Thank you. We have to really consider what are we investing our time, our money into if all we're worried about is what's next, not what's happening right now. What is the way that we can get better right now? What are we going to do on January 20th that's going to live up to the promises that were made? And then what are we going to do if they're not? Are we going to continue to just, one side's going to tell you everything that's wrong, the other side's going to say, hey, it's not that wrong? Or are we going to actually use some critical thinking and then move forward? Because that's the problem that we've had is, hey, 2016 happened. For 4 years, we heard about why it shouldn't have happened. 2020 happened. For 4 years, we heard about why 2020 shouldn't have happened. So 2024, here we are. Is 2028 going to be the same thing? Are we going to talk about for the next 4 years why or why not this shouldn't have been this is what it is. Whatever side you're on, this is what it is. And we have to move forward and get better together.
Let me ask you guys about whether you think that the government could be a source of good in making your lives better. Are you trusting that the government could contribute positively to your life, or are you going to live a good life in spite of the government? Who wants to take that?
I'll start with that. I would say if you're hoping that anyone outside of your immediate sphere of influence is going to make your life better, you really need to consider what your priorities are. Like if your immediate family is not going, if we're not going to heal families, and that's really what we're talking about here, right? If you're investing all of your hopes and prayers into a single individual or a party, you're already hurting in some part of your life, right? So we need to really have a conversation about healing the family unit. Like we're doing this right now, right? This is pretty cool. We get to all talk on the radio on our dad's show. We've got, our kids back with our mom, and our brother-in-law is out doing great things. We've got people, our family is strong, right? When we start to individually heal that, we don't have to worry about, can the government help? Absolutely. And we got to figure out, there's things that need to be in place to help people get back to the same starting line. We got to get to the same starting line as everyone else. But at some point, you got to get off the starting line.
Yep.
And you got to move, right?
Who else? Anybody else?
I was just gonna say, I think my move away from social media, especially, has,
I didn't know you did that. That's really
yeah.
that was very much of an adulting thing, Jen.
It was a time waster.
Seriously, because I death scroll too.
Yeah, I mean it's still.
I'm not on
still
TikTok.
have,
Just Gen
but
Z,
it's-
actually. It's not, you can't
Yeah.
be. You're not part of Gen Z, so you don't death scroll.
Oh, okay.
Death scrolling is still a thing when you're on Facebook Reels.
It is. Yeah.
It is. It's true.
I mean, I still have an issue with my phone, but that's another conversation. So I I mean, my pull away from social media has really helped me to see bigger pictures. I mean, I personally don't really mess with the government. I don't like it. I don't find any trust in people.
So how do you self-promote? How do you provide a trajectory? How are you?
I focus on my local elections. I focus on the people, like Joel said, in your sphere. Because I know that, like, I voted for Josh Shapiro for governor.
Yeah.
You know, and that's my way of, like, he's gonna have influence in my state, and I feel like that's gonna be more of a impact for what the community that I'm trying to protect. And I've talked about this a lot with the election, is rather than focusing on these hot button topics that just divide. That's what they're created for, is to divide our country and to create conversations about things that, you know, maybe aren't as relevant, you know, for a working class family. We need to focus on things that we can control, which would be local elections, the impact of the families in our community. That's my big thing. I mean, my hot button topic would be our education system in Erie. You know, that's what I want to focus on. I want to focus on rebuilding our school district,
Graduation rate,
or retention of our
Truancy.
children.
Yeah.
That's something that I try to work on, even in higher ed, even in a secondary education, you know, viewpoint. So that's what I want to focus on, and that's what I've been encouraging the people that are upset about this election is focus on the things that you can control, because I've never been able to control the government, you know, the federal government.
Yep. And to go off of that, riff off of that, I think people put way too much of their time and effort and emotions into these figureheads and government, and instead of thinking about and expecting them to fulfill these lofty promises, what are you doing to make change? Look around you. There's nonprofits in Erie. There's nonprofits near where you're located. Go volunteer. Go do something to make the change, instead of expecting a government handout that may or may not make any difference.
But people don't want to work. Full circle. Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, but people do want to work.
They do.
Again, we've been saying that the entire election, that no matter who sits in the Oval, you could have much more influence by talking to your neighbor, by making sure that blighted home or that grass that's not cut down the street because the old lady can't afford it. Why don't you go cut the grass?
If everyone started doing little things like that, our country would look completely different. But everyone is stuck looking at their phones, scrolling through TikTok, not going outside to see the sun, touch grass.
Yeah,
I love
grass,
that, to touch grass.
Yeah,
Like-
Bill Belichick, right? Do your job. Do your job. Do your part in your community. Do your part. And like you guys talked about on the show a few weeks ago before the election, right? What percentage of this population in Erie is going to come out and vote for the local leaders in the next election?
Oh, yeah.
What if the percentage was 60% probably?
If we did 75%, we're probably going to be at 35%. For the mayor, for the county executive,
for the people that are going to
city
make
council,
the
county
streets
council,
safe, they're going to make the streets clean.
School district, like
the
Jennifer
school
was
district,
saying.
right? Like all the things
school
that
districts
actually matter, right?
They make the decisions that affect you immediately.
Absolutely.
I mean, the Erie School District, what is it, like $500 million? I mean, it's massive. It's this huge organization.
But they don't
Maybe
have
it's not that much.
But it goes back to my comment
$250
about campaigning, is they don't have the funds to be in front of your face constantly.
Right.
So people don't see it. They don't feel like it's the most important election ever. This isn't the most important election because I don't no one's telling me it's the most important election.
Last 2 minutes with my kids again, Josh, Joel, and Jennifer. Let's end on a high note. What are you looking forward to for the holidays? And I mean, can we be moving to, since there's kind of this muted response after this big presidential, could we be moving toward a more civil and conversation-based and free speech-oriented environment into the holidays and into the new year?
I think, unfortunately, with the holidays, people are like really nervous to talk in their, just in, I guess, what I've been hearing about, family or students going home.
Uncle Sid.
Yeah, like on either side, it's like no one's really like happy unless you're like full on for Trump. Wow. And so I feel like that's kind of like the bummer conversation that's been going on. For me, I'm really excited to spend time with you all, and see my nephews and my niece and
have intellectual conversations.
I am all for critical thinking. That's like the number one thing I talk about.
We can have passion, right?
But I think it goes back to a few things, right? You need to double down on faith, family, right, and then a little bit of fun. And if your side won this election, winning is great. You feel good inside, but have a good conversation. Don't gloat about it. And if you're on the losing side, ask questions, right? Have those intellectual conversations and figure out, why did you vote this way? Mm-hmm. Is it because you're a bigot, because that's what everybody tells you are? Or is it just really because you have a different perspective on life? And maybe you can have a real conversation and come to the middle, right? I think we've got to get back to that. And the holidays are a great time. And I know what Jen's saying, and I totally agree. People are going to be afraid to have that conversation with your estranged, uncle or whatever. Yeah. But faith and family, like, you got to double down on it.
30 seconds, Josh.
Yeah, faith and family, all for it.
Like it. Well, I love you guys. I feel like we've been having these conversations your whole lives. It's not something that we've shied away from. But what's important is you need to, you understand that there's a foundational love and cohesiveness that can't be broken over just some politician. Heck, even a football. I mean, people break up their families over football teams, which is
put your identity into something more sound and structured.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Hey, but we're really proud of you and all you've done this election season. If you are listening right now, you heard all the great things that were happening on this show, and I speak for both of these guys. So proud of what you guys are doing on this show. Amazing.
Mm-hmm. Love you.
Thank you. Love you guys. Joel Jr., Joshua, Jennifer, my children, on a special Tuesday edition right before Thanksgiving. I'm gratefully thankful for my kids and my grandkids, and, of course, my amazing wife who made it all happen.
You've been listening to The Joel Natalie Show, Erie, Pennsylvania's daily podcast from TalkErie.com. Subscribe to our show on your favorite podcatcher and get involved by emailing joel@TalkErie.com.